I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and this is Equal Entertainment. Billy Porter is calling out Anna Wintour and Vogue magazine over its recent cover with Harry Styles. Porter says Wintour approached him about what Vogue can do to uplift marginalized communities. Porter then suggested spotlighting the voices of the degendering of fashion movement. Wintour responded by placing Harry Styles on the cover 6 months later. Styles is a white man, and his appearance on Vogue in a dress went against Porter's initial conversation with Wintour. Porter goes on to say in an interview with The Telegraph that the gatekeepers are using the community to elevate themselves. Madonna's new performance dates for her celebration tour are out after her stint in the hospital. Live Nation says it will start with 4 shows in London this October. The Material Girl will then visit other countries across Europe. The North American leg of the tour is set to begin December 13th at New York's Barclays Center. The schedule makes up for shows Madonna had to postpone due to her recent health issues. Director Ira Sachs has an eye for queer storytelling. He's helmed some of the great projects like Little Men, Love is Strange, and Keep the Lights On. His most recent project, Passages, stars Franz Rogowski as an enigmatic queer man torn between his husband, played by Ben Whishaw, and a woman he falls for, played by Blue is the Warmest Colors, Adele Exarchopoulos. I spoke with Sachs about telling this story and bringing sex back to the big screen.
I screened Passages, and it's really remarkable. I enjoyed it very much. And
thank you.
Yeah, and I wonder if you would just start, I hope easily enough, with just sharing a bit of the genesis of this story. I know you co-wrote it as well.
Yes. I think during the pandemic, I craved intimacy. And I also craved a kind of movie that I worried wouldn't exist when the pandemic was over, which was a film that seemed about my own life in ways that were messy and real. Like I wanted something rich to kind of dive into with other human beings.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, no, I wonder, could you expound on that a little bit about thinking that this type of movie wouldn't exist post-pandemic?
Well, I think there was just this feeling that so many things were disappearing, and I will say that as a gay filmmaker, figuring out how to sustain a career over a long period of time is very challenging, and there's very few of us who've been able to do that. So it isn't easier. It's not coincidental that I made the film in Europe, where I found financing, and so I mean, without being nostalgic, I think we've lost something, which is a kind of personal cinema, which I am committed to making, and also gay cinema.
Something that I think is quite radical about the film is just that there's no meal made out of your lead character Tomas's bisexuality, and often that is such, the story. So would you talk a little bit about introducing this very fluid character without making a big deal out of that piece of it?
Well, I think it's generational. I think I imagine that I would be making a film in which a shift of identity would be more significant than the movie I made. And I think part of that is these characters and these actors are a generation younger than me.
Yeah.
And to be honest, gender did not seem relevant when it came to questions of desire. And I can tell you, I've imagined what it would be like if I made this film about 3 70-year-olds instead of 3 35-year-olds. And it would be a totally different film, because I think, well, for many reasons, but including the fact that identity has gotten less boundaried in present times. The other thing about the film that I think is quite different and generational is that there's no shame in the film. And in my previous work, shame was often central
Mm,
because it's what I grew up with.
yeah.
And I think that there's a kind of liberty in this film that feels to me like a new chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's incredible. And would you say that that's part and parcel of your own journey, or is it just, as you
Very
said,
much so.
generational?
Very much so. I mean, I think we shed the need to hide,
Mhm.
which like day by day, we
Yeah.
recover in a certain way. I
Yeah.
have to say, though, that in terms of the imagery of the film, I had to go back in time and get inspired. I had to go back to films
Mm.
like Taxi Zoom Clos, a
Yes.
film made in 1981, and
I've seen it. I see that. Now that you say that, I totally see that. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, you're that you know the movies that I know. That's very, very. And I also Chantal Akerman's film Je tu il elle, which is a
Mhm.
very open and exposed film in which
Right.
two women make love in front of the camera without hiding. And to
Right.
me, this feeling of a movie that doesn't hide is what I'm after. And I think particularly as a gay person, it's vital to me.
More earlier, I was thinking we don't really see movies with very honest and raw sex in them. I mean, we saw a lot of that like late 80s, early 90s, I would say.
Mhm.
Um, but I already used the word radical act, but to make a film with radical queer sex,
Yes.
and I mean, at a time, I know this is set in Europe, in France, with very European cast. However, in this country where you're from, we are going back to some very puritanical times, and especially with the erasure of queer history and queer lives. And I wonder if you could just touch on the act of making this film in, in this moment.
I think for me, it felt very personally urgent
Mhm.
to make a film that wasn't restrained by my own times.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge that I receive from the queer artists that I love the most. And I really do go back to like um, you know films like Jack Smith's Flaming Creatures and
Sure.
Klaus Nomi and John Sex and all these artists, Keith Haring, all these artists that we lost to the AIDS epidemic,
Mhm.
like are my mentors
Yeah.
really, really deeply, because they were heroes of 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 non-restraint. And I became an artist and a filmmaker in a world of kind of activism. And I don't really think of my films necessarily as political acts, but they are.
Sure. Any kind of, if you're telling stories about a marginalized community and giving voice to that community, I
Yeah.
think to me that's radical.
The rise and success of Taylor Swift is certainly worth studying, and Ghent University in Belgium thinks her lyrics are worth studying as well. The school is launching a new literature course dedicated to the literary merit of Taylor Swift's discography. The course is called Literature, Taylor's Version, a nod to the artist's re-recorded album titles. The professor's blog, Swifterture, compares the pop star's songs to writers including Sylvia Plath, Charles Dickens, and William Shakespeare. She will use Swift's work to engage with literature from the medieval period to modern times. It will be available to students this fall. Kobe Bryant's Mamba mentality legacy is living on with a new shoe designed by the Hall of Famer's widow, Vanessa Bryant. Take a look at this. Vanessa Bryant collaborated with Nike on the project. It's part of the Nike Kobe 8 Pro Tro Halo shoe. It will be released on Kobe's birthday on August 23rd, and the company has plans to release new shoes each year on Kobe's birthday. The basketball star died in January of 2020 in a helicopter crash with his daughter Gianna and 7 others. You can watch the Advocate channel live by downloading our app in the Apple or Google Play Store. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the Advocate channel, I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and thank you for watching.